27 years waiting to die. How they faked the evidence against Jimmie Duncan. The ghosts of Angola. Imagine waking up every single morning for 10,000 days knowing that the state intends to kill you. You are in a concrete box. The air is thick with the humidity of the Louisiana bayou and the scent of desperation. You are a dead man walking. And the reason you are there? The reason the world hates you? It's because of a crime so heinous, it makes the stomach turn. Jimmie Duncan spent 27 years on Louisiana's death row. He was branded a monster. A man who did the unthinkable to a 23-month-old toddler named Haley Oliveaux. For nearly 3 decades, the narrative was set in stone. But what if I told you that the monster wasn't the man in the cell? What if I told you that the evidence used to send Jimmie Duncan to the execution chamber didn't just turn out to be wrong? What if I told you it was manufactured? We are talking about junk science of the highest order. We are talking about a forensic dentist who caught on video pushed a mold of a suspect's teeth into a dead child's body to create the evidence needed to convict him. On Wednesday, November 26th, after 27 years of terror, Jimmie Duncan walked out of prison. But this story isn't just about his release. It is about a judicial system built on smoke and mirrors, and a grieving mother who finally realized she had been lied to for half her life. Hello, and welcome back to the Justice and Injustice channel. This is the story of the stolen life of Jimmie Duncan. Please like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. The manufactured murder, the tragedy in the bathtub. To understand how we got here, we have to go back. Way back to 1993. Haley Oliveaux was just shy of 2 years old. She was a fragile child. Her mother, Allison Layton Statham, loved her dearly, but Haley was sick. According to later records from the Innocence Project, in the weeks leading up to her death, Haley had been suffering from a series of severe seizures. She had head injuries from falls. She had even been hospitalized for a week just prior to the incident. In 1993, Jimmie Duncan was the boyfriend of Haley's mother. He wasn't a career criminal. He wasn't a violent predator. He was just a guy. Then came the bath. The accepted medical reality now is that warm baths can trigger seizures in children prone to them. And that is exactly what appears to have happened. Haley was in the tub. A seizure strikes. She slips under the water. It was a tragedy. An accidental drowning. The kind of heartbreaking accident that shatters a family but shouldn't result in a criminal trial. But this was Louisiana in the 90s. And when the authorities looked at Jimmie Duncan, they didn't see a grieving boyfriend. They saw a target. They accused him of something horrific. They claimed he didn't just let her drown. They claimed he raped her and then drowned her to cover it up. It was a charge designed to make any jury see red. But there was a problem. The physical evidence didn't match that story. So the state brought in the experts, the charlatans. Enter Dr. Michael West and pathologist Stephen Hine. If you follow true crime, you might know these names. If you don't, you need to remember them. For years, this duo operated in Mississippi and Louisiana, acting as the go-to guys for prosecutors who needed a conviction, regardless of the truth. Duncan's legal team today describes them as discredited charlatans. But in the 90s, they were treated like gods of forensic science. The prosecution's case against Jimmie Duncan rested entirely on something called bite mark analysis. Here is the theory. They claim they can look at a mark on a body and match it perfectly to the unique dentition of a suspect, just like a fingerprint. Here is the reality. It is absolute garbage. The scientific community has largely abandoned bite mark analysis. Skin is elastic. It stretches, it twists, it heals, it distorts marks. You cannot reliably match teeth to skin. But in 1998, Dr. Michael West told the jury he could. But in Jimmie Duncan's case, West did something even darker. According to the Innocence Project, there is a videotape. A tape the jury never saw in the 90s. In this video, Dr. West is examining Haley's body. He has a mold of Jimmie Duncan's teeth. And on the tape, West can be seen forcibly pushing the mold into the child's skin. Let that sink in. He wasn't matching a mark. He was creating the mark. The defense argues that West manufactured the evidence that would send a man to death row. He effectively stamped the suspect's signature onto the victim. And then a state-appointed expert, who had no idea how those marks got there, walked into court and testified that they matched Duncan. Of course they matched. They were made by his teeth mold. This wasn't just negligence. This was forensic fraud. The cage shuts. The trial in 1998 was a formality. With the expert testimony of West and Hain, Jimmie Duncan didn't stand a chance. The jury was told a horror story. They were told this man was a monster who preyed on a baby. The mother, Allison, was manipulated by the prosecution. She was told Duncan was guilty. She trusted the authorities. Why wouldn't she? Jimmie was found guilty of first-degree murder. The sentence? Death. He was sent to ANGOLA, the Louisiana State Penitentiary. It is a place built on the grounds of a former slave plantation. It is one of the toughest, most hopeless places in the American penal system. For 27 years, Jimmie sat there. He watched the calendar pages turn. He watched other men walk to the execution chamber. He watched his life evaporate. But while Jimmie was rotting in ANGOLA, the world outside was changing. DNA testing was becoming more advanced. And the science of Dr. Michael West was starting to crumble. Other cases were surfacing. Levin Brooks, Kennedy Brewer, 2 men in Mississippi who served a combined 3 decades in prison for the rape and murder of young girls. Who put them there? West and Hain. Who cleared them? DNA evidence that proved they were innocent. The facade was cracking. But for Jimmie, it almost wasn't fast enough. The unraveling, the Innocence Project took on Jimmie's case. They started digging. They found the video of the mold. They found the medical records of Haley's seizures that had been glossed over, and they found a judge willing to listen. 4th Judicial District Court Judge Alvin Sharp. Last spring, Judge Sharp looked at the evidence. He looked at the bite mark analysis, and he made a ruling that shook the Louisiana justice system. Not scientifically defensible, Judge Sharp ruled that the forensic evidence used to convict Duncan was not scientifically defensible. He went further. He concluded that Haley Oliveaux's death appeared to be exactly what it looked like in the beginning, an accidental drowning. The murder conviction was overturned. But the most heartbreaking moment of this unraveling came from the victim's mother, Allison. Imagine being Allison Layton Statham. For nearly 30 years, you've hated the man you thought killed your baby. You've lived with that rage. Then you see the truth. During a bail hearing just last week, Allison stood before the judge. She didn't ask for Jimmie to be kept in prison. She fought for him. She said, quote, "The horror story that they put out and desecrated my baby. This memory makes me infuriated." She told the court that she now believes her daughter died because she was sick. She said, "I was not informed of anything that would have exonerated Mr. Duncan at all. Had I been, things would have turned out a lot different." She said their lives had been destroyed by the lie. Freedom. But the fight continues. On Wednesday, November 26th, the day before Thanksgiving, Jimmie Duncan was granted bail. Judge Sharp wrote, "The presumption is not great that he is guilty." Duncan was released on a $150,000 bond. He walked out of the cage that held him for 27 years. He plans to live with a relative in central Louisiana. His lawyers say he was a model prisoner who helped other death row inmates get their GEDs. But this isn't over. The Louisiana Attorney General, Liz Morrill, is fighting this. She is pushing to reinstate the conviction. She argues that Duncan should not be out on bail while the state Supreme Court reviews the case. They are clinging to the 1994 indictment, but the reality is stark. The evidence is gone. The science is debunked. The witnesses, including the mother, are now on the defense's side. Conclusion: the broken system. Jimmie Duncan is one of 55 people on Louisiana's death row. Since 1973, more than 200 people on death row in the U.S. have been exonerated, 12 of them in Louisiana alone. We have to ask ourselves, how many Jimmie Duncans are still sitting in a concrete box tonight? How many people are waiting to die because a charlatan with a dental mold decided to play God? Jimmie lost 27 years. He can never get that back. No amount of bail money, no apology can return his youth. Justice delayed is justice denied. But at least for Jimmie Duncan, the cage is finally open. I'll keep following this case as the Supreme Court review happens. Stay safe, and always question the narrative. Thank you for facing this chasm between justice and injustice.